Back on the Continental, just want to show you guys something really cool. With today's engines, all these different engines that I deal with, all these different diagnoses that I am usually on with Hall effect sensors. Your crank and cam sensors run on Hall effect. Your potentiometers, the way the potentiometer inside your blower motor works and all that. All these different electronic sensors and things that the computer's doing to make your vehicle run as efficient as possible. Well, let's take a little step back in time. These are called thermal switches. So this is a thermal switch. What that thermal switch does is, as it heats up, it opens up inside and allows the vacuum that's already flowing in to be transferred over to the next hose and start operating vacuum where it needs to. For example, you see this hose that's coming from this thermal switch right here. So the top one has vacuum. Once it gets hot enough, it collapses, and now the vacuum rolls through and it comes over to the distributor vacuum advance. Now, that by itself is a very unique system too. Why? Because as the distributor spins, as it goes faster and higher RPMs, race engines and all that, the distributor itself will advance because of centrifugal force. But on the street, under lighter load, under part throttle, these much leaner conditions, nothing that you need a lot of power on, what happens is there's vacuum being created below a certain RPM. For instance, like 2200 RPM. There's vacuum being created in the engine because the throttle is closed, so the engine is looking for atmospheric pressure to enter, or atmospheric pressure is finding a way to enter. That's basically how vacuum works. But this vacuum advance right here, it pulls on a linkage inside to advance the ignition timing just a little bit forward, so you can have a little bit more power at part throttle and have better response from the throttle. I mean, think about it. Right now we have coil per cylinder LS engines, Hemi engines that are making a ton of power, and the computer's doing all of that based on the ECT, the engine cooling temperature, based on throttle positioning, based on load, based on all these different things. It's looking at the different parameters where the cam and crank are at, all these different things. And look at this engine. Direct drive distributor, with a thermal switch that advances it. Once it gets warm enough, it'll start advancing it, because it won't do it until it warms up, because when the engine is cold, it runs different than when it does hot. No different than an electronically controlled engine. I just thought I'd touch on that. That is so cool. So, have you ever seen a thermal switch? Any of you guys, new mechanics out there doing work, all you guys doing, big old diesels and all that, I'm sure most of you guys in my age group have messed around with these. Even I have not seen this for a while. Heck, I remember even the old Toyotas used to have this, the 80s, 90s Toyota pickups and stuff, and Nissan Sentras and stuff. They all had thermal switches. Just crazy. Just going back a little bit in time. All right, guys, let me get back to work.